and also give you an opportunity to interact with these fine gentlemen at the front. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to the campus of Chattahoochee Valley Community College. I am Jackie Screws, and I'm the president, and it is our pleasure to host this event. I always like to know information and get feedback from our legislators to find out about the work that they have done to represent us up in Montgomery. And they are always so gracious to come back and share information with us. So today, that is the order of the evening. They have a lot of information to share with you, and I think at the end they'll open the floor for any questions that you may have. And at this time, I think I will just pause and ask them to introduce themselves, and then we will turn the floor over to them for the program. We will start with Representative Gray.
Good evening. I'm State Representative Jeremy Gray. I represent the 83rd District, and that's all the way over Auburn, Opelika, Seal Crawford, all the way over to Phoenix City and Russell County.
And I'm Chris Blackshear, District 80, which encompasses parts of Phoenix City and Russell County. If you put some if you drop some arrows in it, you can say East Alabama Motor Speedway, the flea market right on the corner of 379. I see her here, Miss Pat Waltrip's insurance office on Somerville Road, and then all Ladone and all of that. And it's been a pleasure to serve you so far. I look forward to continue to do that.
Representative Fortune.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my name is Barry Foden. Most everybody in the house know me. I just shook the sheriff hand. Me and him went in all the same year. I've been in Montgomery since 2010, and that's the year he got elected to sheriff, and we've been friends ever since. Do I need to tell you anything here?
That's good. We'll have an opportunity to ask you any questions, Representative Ford.
Okay, I got some questions.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Is this on?
Yeah.
I'm Senator Beasley, and first of all, let me introduce my wife, Rebecca. She's the editor of the Clayton Record newspaper and a former mayor of Clayton. I represent District 28. It's part of Russell County. Seems like I go out 13th Street and go west, and I go south, 165, Fort Ridgewell down in there. And I represent 4 full counties. That's Barber and Henry, Macon, and Bullock. And I represent about 25,000 folks in Houston County. That's Dothan. I'm serving my 4th term in the Alabama Senate. I served 3 terms in the Alabama House. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of trying to be a servant senator, to serve the people in my district. And I'm proud of the fact that I've done the best job I could do during the last 27 years that I've been in the legislature. I served 3 terms in the Alabama House. I served on the General Fund, served on the Health Committee, Tourism Committee, Energy and Transportation. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I certainly appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Mr. President, let me change my statement.
Okay, sure.
If I get this right. Can you hear me?
President
I represent District 84. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
District 84 represents, consists of Baldwin County, all of Baldwin County, all of Bullock County, and half of Russell County. All the southern part of Russell County. What many of your districts we have together? Can you tell me?
At the high school.
At the high school. Well, that means I have to get a high school some money, and you do too, huh?
I'm getting middle school money.
All right. I'm good now. Go ahead.
Okay. I do want to take just a personal privilege to thank you all for the work that you do. Specifically, I want to thank you for what you do for education in our state and for Chattahoochee Valley Community College. We are appreciative. We recognize the hard work, and we know how difficult it is to make decisions at the state level. Before I leave, I want to share just a few housekeeping rules. We have restrooms on both sides of the room in the hallways. So if you need to use the restrooms, just excuse yourself and you can go to either side. And with that said, we'll turn the floor over to Representative Gray. Okay, thank you.
So thank you for letting us host Ms. Florence for always reminding me that we have to do this town hall each and every year, so she beats me to it, right? And so this is just a legislative update. I'm gonna let Rich Blackshear talk about the budgets, but I just want you to know that, you know, for us, this particular session, we went in on February the 4th, we ended May the 15th, and so we do a lot of business in a short amount of time. The summertime, the fall, right before the year ends, we're going throughout the district, trying to get bills together. So the time to talk to us about issues is now. It's not really when we get into session, because the wheel is already rolling, right? And so as we kind of think about how to basically voice your opinion and really have a seat at the table is now. And so as we kind of think about what we do as lawmakers, you know, some people think we do a lot of things, right? We do pass laws, we do pass resolutions, but our most important thing that we do is that we have to pass two budgets. It's the Education Trust Fund and the General Fund. Usually it takes us the entire session to do that, right? So that's why we're in there so long. But usually when we pass the session, we pass the budgets, the session is over, right? And so I just kind of want you to understand that, you know, though you have federal, you have state, you have county, we all have jobs to do, and they particularly work with state or county, but it's our jobs to actually work together. So how can we help the city? How can we help the county? And how can the federal government help us all? And so Chris is just kind of going to talk about the budget and the breakdown, and I'll just kind of just do the slide presentation. You ready? Yeah. And so if you take a glance at just our legislative session, there was about 968 bills filed. So you see 621 in the House, 347 in the Senate. And so if you kind of just look at it, 300 bills passed both chambers, but I think Chris has a number of how many bills actually became law.
Yeah, actually, if you look at that total of the 968 that were filed, only 366 total were passed. And I think the perspective of just showing you too how well we work across the aisle with each other in the House. I don't have a specific breakdown of the percentage numbers of this, but out of those 366, there were 235 passed in the House. There was 131 bills passed in the Senate. Remember, we have 105 members. They have 35 members. To kind of give you some perspective of that. Of the 235 that passed, we had less than 10 bills that passed with more than 10 no votes. So if you think about that, what I'm trying to say is a perspective of how well we work across the aisle with each other. There were only 6 bills out of all the 235 that passed the House that passed on party lines this last session.
And so as we kind of just think about the two budgets, you have the Education Trust Fund. The Education Trust Fund was about $10 billion. It was a 6% increase over last year's fiscal budget. And if we look at it from K through 12, it increased 5.9%, which was $6.7 billion, and then the rest of that went to higher ed. When we think about just the budgets and what we try to do to be innovative with education, we had something called the RAISE Act, and you can see it's Renewing Alabama Investment in Student Excellence. And it basically was a model that we used from Tennessee. Tennessee basically gutted their whole education system and did more of a need base. We didn't do that because it's hard to get a lot of school systems to want to change. So we used a hybrid formula where we kept the baseline foundation money the same, but then we added on top. So if you see that sheet, it should have been a sheet that we passed out. It was a one-pager. And if we can go to that sheet on the big screen right here. That's the numbers, the one-pager. That one. All right, so the RAISE Act is basically a weighted scale that looks at, different things that where money can go. So one of the things that it looks at most importantly is poverty, student poverty. So you can see that it's way 2.25, but when you look at the money, that's $68 million. And then you go down to special education, and you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, English language learners, gifted, charter, et cetera, et cetera. And so what tends to happen is that we look at these numbers and these percentages, and from those numbers, we gave every county, every school system more money. Now, Montgomery, Mobile is going to give more than Russell County and Phoenix City, right? Because they may have more property, they may have more people. So we look at, I don't know we can get to it, but the big sheet with all the numbers on it, and we can find, maybe we can find Russell County and then Phoenix City schools. So Russell County is right there, and we can see that they got look like they got an additional almost $600,000 onto what they already have. And if we look at Phoenix City, it's right here, it's 1.2 million total, right? And so this is additional on to what you already have, and it's really if you look on that one pager at the bottom of the one pager, it tells you where the funds come from. It tells you where the funds Test. So it kind of gives you an idea about the funds. So like 21 million came from at-risk. It goes on and on at the bottom, telling you where the funds come from, and then we added some additional funds onto it as well. And so this is a hybrid model to where, say if a school like Hoover, who already has money, who already has resources, they shouldn't get more than rural parts of Alabama, right? And so it's really to equal out the playing field. And so this is just one way we're able to be very innovative as far as education. Two more things when dealing with education is one was the parental leave bill that actually allowed for educators and state employees to get parental leave. I think it was 8 weeks for mothers and 2 weeks for fathers. And then we also, on top of that, we had a workman's comp. So because before now, if you was on the job, you was an educator, and you got hurt, you just got hurt, right? You either had to come in or you had to miss work, but you didn't get paid for it. And so with this work comp, I think it's $15.6 million that we put in the budget for this fiscal year. It will go towards that as well. And so those are some of the highlights that we kind of had in the education budget. I will move on to Chris to see if he had anything you want to add, or Senator Beasley, or even Barry Ford as well.
The only thing I will add to it is everybody always asks, the first thing they go to is, was there a teacher raise, within the budget? Well, this is the first year of the last 6 years we didn't have a raise for the teachers. However, a direct raise, but if you go back and look at it, Jeremy touched on the paternity leave and maternity leave for the first time. It's never been there. That's one. And number two, the workers' comp. The maternity leave was a little over $100 million. Was that investment into the teachers? And also, I think the most significant thing is we fully funded PHIP that went from $808 to $908 per employee. So you may not see your paycheck and your direct deposit increase, but it definitely is not going to decrease this time with the continuing cost rises around healthcare. We offset PHIP's request with that.
Let me add on the maternity leave and pay during that period of time. They also, the teachers, PHIP, and the state employees receive their full base pay, which is also important. I think there's also a measure passed to exclude sales tax on feminine hygiene products, baby diapers, and I thought that was very important as well. And in the general fund, we passed an additional $500 million that can borrow for prison construction. The facility in Elmore County is somewhere around $4.2 billion to construct a 4,000 prison facility in Elmore County. Supposed to be completed by 2026, but not occupied until 2027. There was also an additional 1 cent off of state sales tax on groceries. So now Alabama is 2% sales tax that you only pay for groceries. I think it costs the budget about $122 million for exempting an additional 1 cent on sales tax. And last of the previous general fund measure, the 1% sales tax off groceries was offset by overtime pay. There was just an exemption on overtime pay.
Okay, we're gonna move. Okay. Oh, I'm a country boy and I talk loud, so I most don't need anything. Out of the country, I'm looking on the phone, you talk real loud. But I'm gonna let y'all hear me back there. He just talked about the drugs attack, parental leave. Did you talk about the parental leave for the teachers? Yes. Let me start back now. Yeah. Okay. Out of that $12.1 billion, $12.1 billion for the education budget. I'm talking about the education budget now. Of that amount, $9.9 billion will go to Quail School. Also, $375 million set aside for the RAISE Act. All right, let me tell you about the RAISE Act. The RAISE Act provides the following in the upcoming school year, this coming school year. $68 million for high-powered school, an increase of $37 million from last year. $49 million in new funding for special education. $33 million for English learning, and an increase of $17 million. $12 million for gifted students, an increase of $1.3 million. $1.2 million in new funding for charter schools. The general fund budget, which funds budgeted all the state government other than education, was set at $3.7 billion. That is a 10% increase over the 25. Somebody say, y'all got plenty of money up there rolling down the aisle like milk and honey. And we have got plenty of money up there. But you go after something, they're going to say, we ain't got the money. We don't have the money. That's the first thing they're going to tell you. I was sitting downtown last year, high profile restaurant there. You could go to McDonald's and eat. And I ran up on the controller. He knew me and I knew him. He sat to the table with some folks out by myself. I said, y'all going with your conversation? He said, no, I got something to tell you. He said, since COVID-19, you know how much money the federal government had poured into the state of Alabama. I said, I sure don't. Isn't that this good? This comes from the controller. He handled all the state money. He said $62 billion rolled into Alabama. He said, y'all better spend that money wisely because it's going to be a long, long time before you get that kind of money again. So we, in Barbara County and Russell County, they paid a lot of roads. I don't know, is everybody here from the county commission? They probably can tell you about it more than I can. Chance, you know. That money gone. Don't come ask nobody to pay your street because that money is gone unless we get a hold of some more. And I don't know how this session gonna be coming up, but we ain't got the money that we've been having. All right, Senator.
We had $160 million in the education trust fund that was for children who have special needs for education. Maybe children that are not familiar with the English language, that they can be taught the English language, because that's not their natural language. That was 160 million that was added. Okay, turn it back over to Representative Gray.
So, only thing I would add is just the additional funding for Medicaid. You see there's $223 million, which was a 19% increase. And then if we kind of go back to education, we did pass over the Focus Act, and then we understand that Focus is literally like a ban on cell phones in the classroom. And so what the Focus Act does is it makes every local school board set policies and procedures around cell phones. So whether that's, you have to keep them in your car, put them in your locker, put them in a pouch, whatever it may be. But what is to combat like kids' ability to learn, right? Because when we think about the screen time, so if I'm on my phone for 5 minutes, it takes me 23 minutes to basically recalibrate to get to learning, right? And so when we think about these cell phones being in these students' hands each and every day, and pretty much every minute, it's hard to learn and have a cell phone. And so this is, some schools are already doing this, probably Phoenix City, Russell County, but was really a uniformity for the whole state to have policies and procedures in place. And there are exceptions, right? So don't get upset, if, but there are things around education. So if your phone needs to be used for education purposes, there's an exemption for that. What is a 504 plan? So if your kid needs it for a 504 plan, maybe they have dialysis or they have diabetes, something of that nature. And in case of an emergency, they can use it as well, right? And so it is a step forward in the right direction, but it does have some exemptions as well.
Representative Gray, on the cell phones, the only thing going to be banned is the school years is coming new.
Yeah, they ban, but with exceptions. So they are banned, but you can still use them to some
The cell phone, there's also a bill that was passed that it would be some way that you could block any obscene information supplied to a cell phone to protect the young children in schools, which I thought was good. It passed unanimous.
And I think the one thing I'll add too, and Jim did a good job of recapping some of the things on the budget. And I know you saw on the slide the increase around Medicaid, but I think it gives you a true perspective and a full picture when you actually hear the numbers outside of just the percent of increase. So the current budget that we're under, our budget cycle year begins October 1. So we're in the final quarter of the current 24-25 budget. We're on the downhill slide. The current budget that we're in right now, we funded Medicaid $955 million. That was what was in the current budget. The budget that we passed this past session that kicks in October 1 was that $200+ million increase you saw. So Medicaid now is going to be funded at $1.184 billion next year in our state. But I will say that with some clouds. The growth that it's going, we're going to go off a cliff. We're not going to be able to have the funds to continue to fund it at an increased rate like that. So that's part of the thing Senator Beasley talked about earlier. You got to find the necessity, you got to find additional revenue to be able to put it in the buckets where it's needed the most. So those are some of the things you've already heard too. At some point, you're going to run out. You cannot sustain in the budget because we're not like the federal government. We just can't go print more money. That $60+ billion of COVID money was great, but the taxpayers are paying that back. Somebody's got to pay for it. It's great that it came here. We don't have the means, and legally, we can't go print more money. So we have to live within the state like we live within our own house budgets. So keep that in mind as we go forward.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay, you follow me. I got that one thing, so I'll be through. And I know y'all watch television, especially the news. But we sure got into it about on the last legislature a few weeks ago with the anti-crime bill. Police immunity. So the bill was fine down in the House. It was real fine. I went for it. I said, yeah, I'm supposed to go out. I supposed to win. I'll get back to you in a few minutes. I want y'all to hear me. Now y'all can hear me. So, man, you're crazy if you don't support the police. But when they got up there in the Senate, where Senator Beasley said, I said in the House, he said in the Senate, they changed everything on the bill. Law enforcement officer will now have expanded civil and criminal immunity. That means you can get about suing one now. You come in your house, start and knock all your windows out and do it. You can't sue them no more. According to the bill we got passed. Now, I know we got some law enforcement folks in here. I support law enforcement. They said the legislature also approved other crime-related bills, including banning so-called Glock switches. You know what a Glock switch is? The children, what's in the house? They know about it. We do, I imagine. Which essentially turns pistols and rifles into rapid-fire weapons. We are voting against that. Who wants that? We ain't in the army. We ain't in the army. We said enhanced criminal penalty for various crimes when a firearm is involved. Enhanced criminal penalty for impersonating an officer. But you got a lot of folks impersonating officers. Expand electronic monitoring for juvenile delinquents. So go ahead. I didn't want you to know that. When the police stop, and don't be talking back at them. Stop. Don't be talking back at the law. They sit there with your arm folded, with your arm hanged up there where they can see you. But you gonna get in trouble. It ain't gonna do nothing to them. The bill said it ain't gonna do a thing to them. They're immune to them.
Unlike the other members on this panel, I'm in full support of law enforcement. We have a tremendous sheriff in Russell County, and I will continue to support law enforcement. But I think it's important today that the crime in Montgomery is the highest rate that I've seen in the last 20 years. And I think families have got to have relationships with their children, and they've got to instruct them on the importance of respect.
Yeah.
Respect not only people, but also have respect for property, because there are consequences. I'll always support law enforcement. But, I think we've got several things that are a detriment to young people today, and that's what they see not only on cell phones, that's what they see on television. They send in all the wrong messages, and the companies who provide all the advertising and television, they're trying to sell a product. They need to be more responsible for the content that they display on the screens, how it affects families and children, not only in Alabama, but throughout our country. There needs to be more regulations on the content that they provide. I'm going to switch gears just a minute. Go back to education. The 2-year college system has my full support. We're very fortunate to have Chattanooga Valley here. It's been a real strong focus, workforce development, career tech, because we need more people in the trades. Everybody doesn't need to go to college to get a 4-year degree, but we need plumbers, electricians, folks who can lay concrete, carpenters, everything to do with the trades. And I think over the last, well, that started in the late 66, 65 or 66 when Governor Wallace was governor the first term. That's when the 2-year college system was created. And it gets better and better and better in providing jobs. And folks, the young people could go and use the dual enrollment where they could get their high school credits and transfer them into the college system, as well as the 2-year college. Those factors were very important. I've got another issue I want to talk about, but I've got to drink some more.
No, that's fine. We want you to talk about the PBM reform because you led that effort. So that was our next thing. So you can take a drink and kind of tell us how we got to that point. But people,
You want me to go ahead? Okay. We had another very controversial bill this time. Very controversial. We battled on it day and night. Sometimes we go to midnight. Y'all think we sit there without our arm fold, don't do that, but we work, showed up hard when we in Montgomery. Speaking to you in a minute, but you gonna get the bill passed up or down, or either we're gonna go till we, all night until we get it passed. 10 Commandments, school chaplain in Gulf of America. President won't change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It died. 10 Commandments bill died. The legislature would have required local school boards of education and the governing body of each public institution. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Oh, hi, I told you I come from the country, I can talk loud. 10 Commandments, as well as contact statement in a common area of school. All right. Go ahead, sir. I got a letter I got to get to here.
Let me tell you about a bill that was passed this session. It is a bill to regulate pharmacy benefit managers. How many folks in the audience know what a pharmacy benefit manager is? Well, we only have one person that knows. If you receive, if you're a state employee or you're a member of the education system, the P-HIP program and the C-HIP program, they retain a company called Express Scripts for, I know it's for the teacher program. The pharmacy benefit manager came into being in about 1984. And they saw how much money was involved in prescriptions that are filled, and they said they were really processing claims for different companies, whether it's individual companies or education, state employees. And they formed a company called Spread. It was really Caremark. That was the first one. Then now Caremark, Optum RX, Humana, CVS Caremark. They are hired by corporations or public entities to manage the prescription benefit, and their song and dance is, if you hire me, we'll control the prices of prescription drugs. And since 1984, the prices of prescription drugs have skyrocketed. The prices of the reimbursement fees to retail drugstores have gone, they've been slashed to the bone. I retired from my retail drugstore 3 years ago. And this 2 years ago, we tried to pass in the House a measure that would change the reimbursement formula for retail drugstores in Alabama at the same reimbursement formula that the state of Alabama has for Medicaid, which is its average cost plus a fee of $10.64. And the reason that's important is because every drugstore in Alabama, Russell County in Alabama, has a cost of doing business. The pharmacy benefit managers have never considered that a drugstore has a cost of doing business. That's rent, that's employee salaries, that's utilities, retirements, everything to do with having your business ready to operate on Monday morning if you have expenses. And they have never allowed any measure to compensate for that. So the opposition was Blue Cross Blue Shield, Business Council of Alabama, and they went on in the television market and said that the $10.64 dispensing fee was a tax, that it would be applied to every prescription. Well, that was just false statements, because it's not a tax. It's a compensation for a drugstore to be able to be viable in order to provide the prescription service, be able to employ pharmacists, and pay all the expenses that they incur. And and it failed. The sponsor withdrew the bill. Well, this year we came back with it again and illustrated the importance of consideration for the cost of doing business. And we were able to pass the bill in the Senate through the committee process, through the Insurance Committee. It passed unanimous. It passed on the Senate floor unanimous. Transferred it to the House because you have to pass a measure the same in both houses, Senate and House. Sent it down to the House, went through the Insurance Committee. It passed. We had a debate, the Senate and the House. And the House Committee didn't do a roll call vote, they just did a voice vote. And it passed unanimous. Went to the full House a couple of days, and it passed unanimous, 102 votes to 0. In the Senate, I think it was 32 to 0. But let me tell you why it's another reason why it's important. When the drugstore purchases prescription drugs, they're on the invoice cost. With the PBMs, when a prescription was filled for, say it was Zinc, as you all know, it's about $1,000. They reimburse the drugstore about $850. That's a loss of $150 and paid a dispensing fee of 25 cents. You can't stay in business that way. And that was happening across the board on the majority of brand name drugs, whether if it cost $100, $200, $300, they were not paying the actual cost that the drugstore was having to pay for the medicine in order to provide the prescription medicine to fill the prescription. And a lot of drugstores in the state of Alabama were going in debt each month because they didn't have enough money in their bank, not only not to pay the employees for working, they didn't have enough money to reimburse their or restock their inventory in the drugstore. And finally, the members of the legislature realized what was happening. You know, if you just look around Phoenix City, how many small drugstores have gone out of business in the last 10 years? It's happening in every county in Alabama. And this law was passed, it goes into effect October 1st. And it's going to allow drugstores to stay in business where they can pay their expenses. You have to, you know, regardless of what business you're in, you have to make a profit in order to stay in business. Look at Home Depot. Look at Target. Look at all the other big, Walmart. Walmart's the biggest business in the whole world. You get a good price, but they're making a profit. But anyway, it's a major piece of legislation that goes into effect October 1st. It only applies to commercial insurance. It does not apply to PIP, doesn't apply to CHIP, doesn't apply to TRICARE, doesn't apply to Medicare Part D. It only applies to commercial insurance. And the measure was presented and passed to prevent drugstores from going out of business because they didn't have enough money to buy the drugs or pay the employees or pay the power company. Because the pharmacy benefit manager was not paying the invoice cost. That's important. That's a net cost. And let me tell you one other thing. These pharmacy benefit managers who said they're going to save money, they're the ones who are making all the money. Most of these companies are on the New York Stock Exchange, and they're powerful companies. And they not only about the cost, they tell the doctor which drugs they can prescribe and how many you can prescribe. They create every rule for in the field of prescription drugs that is dispensed by a drugstore. And I'll tell you one other thing about the pharmacy benefit managers. They own a mail order pharmacy in every one of their PBMs. So if they force a patient not to be able to get to the drugstore and not to be able to get a prescription in a local drugstore, they force you to go to the mail. Well, how wrong is that in the United States? That's not free enterprise, because they dictate the rules. And I hope and pray that this measure that we passed is going to benefit the citizens of Alabama as well as the retail drugstore industry. And a lot of other states are looking at this measure because it's critical. I just attended a function in Birmingham, Southern Legislative Council Conference. Representative Blackshear was there as well. And there are a lot of states want to implement this same measure. Because if we don't, it's going to hurt the citizens, not only of Alabama, but the citizens of the United States. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
After this, we'll open it up. You can go and then we're gonna do a Q&A. Yeah.
If I can get my speaker right. I want everybody to hear me. Now, there we go.
Now, here's a bill. I got 2 grandchildren in school, one 9 and they're in 6. Parental gun responsibility. Yeah, you know, this bill got killed in the Senate. Well, I didn't vote for it now in the House. And if it come back up again, I understand it coming back up when we go back. I'm gonna vote for it against it again. A bill that will have parents criminally responsible for their children carrying their gun to school. If the gun was not locked up at home, failed it said coming back up. You know, if it had a pass, this and that. If the bill had passed, a parent, guardian who's fairly responsible to secure a weapon with a trigger guard to keep it in a gun box or safe, and that child took the weapon to school, they will face in jail, a year in jail, and a $6,000 fine. That would bankrupt a lot of families. I know you ain't got no, but I told my grandchildren, I said, you know, you can't find my gun nowhere at my house when they come over there. Their daddy and mom ain't got no, they got guns. But I said, your children carry a gun to school and charge me, I'm probably going to jail. They ain't gonna pay it. I'm probably gonna have to go to jail, sit that time in jail. I'm through revelation.
So we're just gonna open it up for Q&A.
We answer all the questions we can.
Representative Gray, you want to talk about the alpha?
You go ahead.
There was another piece of legislation that was passed this year in the House and the Senate, signed by the governor. The Alpha organization will be able to offer a health insurance plan to their members. And the reason that they came with the legislation is because the cost of health care insurance has gotten so high that many of the farmers were unable to buy the insurance. It had a lot of amendments added to the measure, but it passed unanimous. I believe it was unanimous in the House. I know it was unanimous in the Senate. And you know, we got to protect our farmers because they all want to go to the grocery store and buy our groceries. Because without the farmers, we wouldn't have groceries to buy. I know a lot of people have gardens and they take care of their families with vegetables, and that's very, very important. But I voted for the measure. Blue Cross Blue Shield fought it pretty hard. We had several amendments added to the measure, but it passed unanimous. And I think it may be the 13th or 14th state to pass a health insurance program as presented by the Alpha organization. Thank you.
It's a question for anybody up there. If it seems like politicians in the nation are more divided than ever. And so what are you guys doing different that you seem to be getting along and you're passing bills unanimously? Is there something different in the water?
I think it has a lot to do with the leadership in the House and in the Senate. And in the Senate this past year, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, who is the leader of the Senate, elected by the full body of the Senate, 35 something. And Senate Pro Tem Garland Gudger, I think he was elected in 2018, I believe. He's a business person. He's a conservative. He's pro-education, but he also has the ability to bring people together. And I know I talked to him about the PBM regulation bill, and he was very supportive of that, but I think that has a lot to do with it. I really think the climate out of Washington, it's divided our country in the last 10 years. I think we're more divided today than any time I've ever seen. You know, I'm a Democrat. I'm the only white Democrat in the Alabama Senate. There are 8 Democrats. And I'm proud to be a Democrat. I'm a business person. I'm a conservative. I believe in respect. I believe in law and order. And I have the ability to get along with people. So if a Democrat's going to pass any measure in the Alabama Senate or the Alabama House, you've got to work with the members of the Republican Party in order to get the bill passed. To pass a bill in the Senate, if it's not something that affects the Constitution of Alabama, you got to have at least 18 votes. If it's Constitution, you got to have 21. And, you know, we may have, I think we'd be a lot better off in this country if we didn't have so many television stations. We got all these cable stations. They all compete against each other, trying to out this one, out that one. And everybody's got an opinion. Everybody in this room can make an opinion for themselves on what's right and wrong. You know, we don't need the folks in the cable industry to tell us how to treat our neighbor, how not to be a criminal. You know, God doesn't allow us but one life. If you go out and do something stupid and you get killed, your life's over. And you may have hurt other people. I think crime is one of the biggest issues we have in this country. You know, I think more people need to be at church and listen to the teachings of the Bible. I don't know. My daddy told me when I was growing up, you know, you got 2 lanes. You can pick a crowd, go down this lane, you're going to pay the consequences. Or you pick this other lane, run with this crowd, they'll build you up. He said it's much more important to go with folks who build you up than go with folks who beat you down. And I'm not going to make y'all think that I'm sitting up here and I never made a mistake, because I have. And the mistakes I made, I have had to pay for them. And I'll say this publicly. In 1979, if it hadn't been for my wife, Rebecca, because I went through a terrible time, but she gave me the support that I needed. And I'll be forever grateful to Rebecca, as long as the good Lord allows me to live. Thank you very much.
One more statement. I gotta do this. Get that. Get it. We closed down a school in Bottle County a few weeks ago. And I don't know why, but the superintendent told me they was leaving, they wouldn't have enough students over there, coming down to 400 students, they were losing money, blah, blah, blah. The governor came to our school a couple of years ago, and I told her about how bad the shape the school was in. Yeah, I made her mad before she left there. Maybe I shouldn't have did it. She said, it costs a lot of money to build a school. I said, I know it does. Can y'all hear me? I said, I know it does. I said, but how about the prison? How much money costs the prison? We ready to build a prison and to build a school? Well, the prison over there more Prison down in Scammon County gonna cost us, what, $2 billion?
4.2 is helpful. Probably another 4.
How many schools could we could have built that kind of money? I want to let y'all know what's going on in Montgomery. A lot of wasted money. I know, me and Senator Beasley got 3 prisons in our district, one in Union Spring and the other 2 in Barber County. And they ain't very old. We could have remodeled them. He said, no, can't do that. Well, the prison gonna do the same thing to the new prison that they do to the old prison. Stop them up, tear them up, what you name it, they're gonna do it. And you know, they're gonna build a new prison now. I can't see them building a Holiday Inn for prison. Where you gonna put prison in a Holiday Inn for to tear it up? That's all they're gonna do, tear it all to pieces. But I had to get that out of my mind because I'm against it 100%. 100%, 1,000% spending that kind of money on prison when they can use the money for something else. Now I'm through now, I'm not gonna say nothing else. Then y'all ask me questions. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good evening. I have Senator Beasley, you talked about the cost of insurance. Alabama is one of 10 states who did not accept the Medicaid expansion by the federal government. In light of the big, beautiful bill in which a lot of our rural hospitals are going to be closed down, what has the state thought about combating that, the inequities of rural hospitals as well as maternity health in those rural areas, and how we're going to combat that now that we have no money to fund those things?
Well, I was a proponent of the Medicaid expansion.
Microphone. Thank you.
I was a proponent of the Medicaid expansion, and in my opinion, the reason it didn't pass is politics. It was, President Obama was president when it was passed, allowed the states to receive more federal money if you accepted Medicaid expansion. We have about 28 hospitals in the state of Alabama that are on the verge of closing.
Exactly right. I'm gonna bring that up. Go ahead.
You know, in the bill that was passed in Washington, goes into effect October 1st, they're going to cut funds to Medicaid, they're going to cut funds to rural hospitals,
SNAP program.
they're going to try to control the SNAP program. And there again, on that bill, he gave all the billionaires in this country more tax credits. If anybody can afford to subsidize state government, it's the billionaires. I don't know.
Well, I think I'll add to that too.
I know this. Go ahead.
No, I think you need to see the other side of this as well too. Misha, we're still analyzing what the true impact's gonna be. Because right now it's a lot of hearsay. I think where you're gonna see when it's done, the facts are gonna show the states that have actually expanded Medicaid, unfortunately, are gonna lose more Medicaid funding than the states that haven't. We have a problem right now to where we know that we have, and this is my take on healthcare as a whole, we got people that are going to work every day, husband, wife, working, and can't afford insurance for their family. We have to find a way to fill that gap. But we also have people sitting on their butts at home that are able-bodied and can go work, getting the benefits, taking it from somebody that needs it. That's what we got to figure out. What does that look like? We got to clean it up and make sure that the people that need the assistance are getting the assistance, and get the people that are just riding the system off of it. So that's the we're going to have to start going. That's part of the, we can't keep funding it the way it is because we're going to go broke. We can't keep funding it. So that's what we're going to look at.
But are you gonna try to do it like the federal government did and just say, oh, we're just gonna cut this much because it's fraud and it's abuse? There's not that many fraud and abuse people.
Well, I think the four of us up here and the majority of this room truly cannot sit here and say what the impact to Alabama is going to be right now.
Well,
And we're all going off those multiple cable networks
they have
that we're listening to on the news.
They
I mean, so
have independent financial people that can tell you, and if you check through those.
well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing right now to see what the impact's going to be to Alabama.
My question for you is, are you willing to, either any of the four of you willing to, put in a bill for early voting in Alabama?
You know, we had early voting in Alabama in 1998. That's the first year I ran. In Barber County, that time I ran in Barber County and Henry County. Nobody went to the polls to vote. I think early voting would be fair. I'd be for it.
Well, there are a lot of people that live on minimum wage and have 2 or 3 jobs, and one day for voting is not really fair to them to have to take off work to go vote and lose part of their income.
I totally agree with you.
Mr. Chairman.
I have one question back.
I got one. Okay, go ahead. We want to keep y'all all night. Go for it.
Well, I don't want to stay all night, but I do have several questions that I would like some type of response to. My name is Angela Walton, and I'm one of those small nonprofits in Alabama that has been affected, let's just say, by a new administration. I went from January the 20th, having a grant, 200+ thousand, to January the 23rd, having to decide whether I would keep half of my staff or not. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. We have, Beasley mentioned, the crime is our biggest problem. So your answer to the crime is to build more prisons. My answer to the crime is to give these young people something to do. Because if we keep going the rate that we're going, and I know you all know about the $700 million we got for opiates in Alabama. We do substance abuse, I don't even know how to access it in Russell County. So you all are here telling us about the great things that you all are doing for education, your general funds. And this is great, a great forum to give us an opportunity to say some of the things that we see. And so again, to hear you mention about God, he says when you do it for the least of them, you're doing it for him. Understand these 2 family homes that don't have insurance. I do believe some people are sitting on their butts and need to be working, need to be providing some type of getting something back and getting something for free. I totally agree with that. But if we don't save our young people, we will not have a future.
I would say a comment that I agree 100% with that. First off, from the prison perspective, the federal government filed a lawsuit against the state, so we're under a federal government court mandate to build prisons.
Not to build no expensive.
You're right. Of course, inflation over the years has made that go up. You're right. I mean, I'm a firm believer is you got to back upstream above the dam and ask yourself, why are we having to build more prisons? It goes back to what you said, because people aren't obeying the law. I think it starts, number one, at home, to where look, and I'm a parent, I can say this, I've been there, and it's been a struggle. My job is to be a father and a parent to my child. Once they're an adult, they're on their own. My job as a parent is not to be my daughter's friend. It's to hold them accountable and make sure they understand. I think this right here is one of the biggest problems. And I'm glad to see it going away in the schools. Because with this, we don't know how to communicate anymore. We take what somebody sends in a text and it makes it think, well, they're being smart with me, or we're going to confront them. We don't know how to dissolve a potential issue anymore because of these. We've lost the art of communicating. It's too easy. So maybe with this out of school now, we'll get back to where it was when I was in school. We talked in the hallways. We may have fought in the hallways, but guess what? We had that little fight where somebody was blocking up. We moved on. It was over with. It didn't escalate to where next thing you know, police officer involved, and somebody's been charged with a crime or something. So to me, the grassroots where it starts is at home. And our educators, I pray for them every single day. It's not their job from K4 through a senior in high school to be a continuation. It's not babysitting for 18 years. They're there to educate our kids, to let them know they have an opportunity. No matter, and I don't look at having roadblocks. I think a lot of us have hurdles. Some hurdles are bigger than others for people. But at the end of the day, you have the same opportunity to maneuver around those hurdles and be a success.
Representative, like I said, I want somebody to talk. It bothers me. You know, Dr. Don Williamson retired the other day, Alabama Hospital Association. When I went to Montgomery in 2010, talked to the same man. He went for the same organization, I think it was. He told me, he said it was 11 hospitals. Then the other day he told me, he said, I didn't see him, I saw him on television, he said, that many more on the chopping block. If somebody I represent rural county, where poor folks at. Folks ain't got their own Medicare and Medicaid. My neighbor got sick the other day. She can't hardly walk, can't hardly get around. She went to the Butler County Hospital. The hospital, they about to shut down up there. They tell the doctor, they had to get a doctor. You go to Dothan or come to Columbus, Georgia when you go to the hospital. So we got a charge here building $2 billion hospital. I mean, prison or help folks keep the hospital doors open. But they closing every day. They closing every day. And folks in the rural, what they gonna do? Someone gonna die at home, I guess. Now I'm through for the night. Mr. President, I'm through, Mr. President.
All right, so good to see you guys. I came in a little bit late, but I heard the expansion, on Medicaid expansion. I heard that bill. I'm for the Focus Act. I think that's a great thing. But one thing, right here in Russell County, Phoenix City, I just want to know how many billions of dollars would it be that the state of Alabama has set aside for updating water and sewage? And also, part two question, unrelated, AI, the innovation of AI is good for some people. So was there a bill passed, and if so, in what relation was it passed? And tell me a little bit about how the state of Alabama is going to utilize AI.
Well, first off, let's touch on the infrastructure. I don't have the number of hundreds of millions of dollars, but ADM has hundreds of millions of dollars they put in there. A lot of that was COVID money they were able to use for water treatment plant upgrades, infrastructure upgrades. The unfortunate thing with a lot of that is that falls back on your local governments. That falls back on your city councils, that falls back on your counties, to be able to have almost like road projects matching money to pull those down, so that's there. Now, I do want to go back one thing on the opioid money you just mentioned a minute ago about your nonprofit. The latest round we released, I would follow up with your city council and I would follow up with your county commissions, because they are getting opioid money back to them that they will be able to use at their discretion. They have some things they have to follow, right, of what it can go for. But they're getting, I don't know the numbers that Russell County and Phoenix City got, but all counties and cities across the state are getting another cut of that opioid money that's coming back. Now, related to AI, you're the young guy. You got those glasses with your TV screens on, so I'm gonna let you answer the AI question.
So as far as AI, you just kind of, so there is no movement really on the federal level, because there's no uniformity. So Utah is doing something, Alabama is doing something, so it's not a uniform component of AI, right? And so no one really wants to restrict it so much that it can't be used. So AI is still in limbo. One thing you do see is, as far as when you talk about deep fakes and things of that nature, if you're running a campaign and someone can take your voice in your face and they can say things that you didn't say, right? Those are things that we put into law because we want them to protect candidates and things of that nature. But as far as putting a lot of guardrails on things we really don't understand, you don't see a lot of states doing that. So one thing that I'm doing is I created a quantum. So you think about AI, then you think about quantum computing. I started a task force, and in this task force, it's gonna be about 16 people in this task force. And they're gonna be tasked with coming up with a 10-year plan around quantum AI, how it affects K through 12, post-secondary, and industry as well. And through that, we'll be able to come up with common sense legislation. Because you don't want to be able to utilize something that could benefit you, right? It can benefit you in schools, it can benefit you as far as like, if you're a small business owner, if you don't have an assistant, it can do all those things for you, right? It can organize those things. So you don't want to hinder it. So right now, just a lot of people kind of watching and seeing, but I think this task force is really gonna put us ahead of the game. When we really think about quantum and AI, it's really cybersecurity, right? It's really about people who get into your information. These hospitals sometimes are getting ransom for money because they're sending out these phishing emails. So how do we combat these national securities that, our adversaries like China and things like that will be using as a tactic of war? And so we're kind of in the early stages of that, but I can tell you that Alabama is one of 5 states that will have that quantum computing task force. And it should start, as soon as I get the board together, the task force together, it should start around like September, October.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask all of you for a little bit more clarity on the policing and community law. I'm in 100% support of policing our communities. I know it is an obvious need, and I understand the amount of liability that comes with these types of jobs. However, I do believe that we can't afford bad apples in these types of jobs and these types of positions. So I just want to get a little bit more clarity on what does this law entail when it comes to people feeling like their rights can be infringed upon without any consequence to the offender.
Yeah, so what it usually has, it has a civil and a criminal, right? And so usually, you can't prosecute a law enforcement, you can actually sue, right? This bill would make it much harder, right? So what essentially will happen would be if, like, say, if someone officer done something to me, right? And say that we went before the courts, right? And say they didn't rule in my favor, as a citizen, it would be much harder for me to get a repeal, right? Whether it's civil or criminal, it'll be hard for me to get a repeal, but on the flip side, if it's the officer, it helps them get the repeal process, right? So what we kind of saying is that we see things where we see good officers, right? And then we see things that happen in Huntsville and, Coleman County where you see bad things. And for me, I think you have both sides of the coin. Some people think this is pro-law enforcement and they love it. I don't necessarily love this bill because it gives the ability that someone that is doing wrong to get coverage, and that is going to be the unintended consequence. But I think the idea was that, with so much violence, so much protesting, so many things that you wanted to protect the law enforcement too, but it's just really hard to do both, right? And so this is one of those issues that you can't really be in the middle, right? You're either be for the bill or against the bill. But I was kind of against the bill because I think that it was an overreach, right? Because it doesn't punish the over abuser, right? Like the person who is doing fine, he's a great officer, he's an outstanding citizen, that's cool, but the guy that is the bad apple, it really works in his favor. He or she favor to abuse the law.
Hi, I'm a single mother of 3 kids, and they grew up in the Phoenix City School District. Fantastic teachers, support the administration. One of the things that I'm most terrified about is sending my kids to school. They have PTSD and anxiety because of the school shooter drills, the lockdowns. So SB 4 was passed, and with that, there's no accountability for how those funds are being adjudicated. What concrete steps and actions are you going to take as our representatives to protect our children, not only from the guns that are allowed into the schools, but also from the mental harm that these lockdowns are causing?
You gotta tell us what SB 4 is.
Sure, it was a bill passed in 2024, and I can give you the details on it. So it was expanded school safety funding, including SROs, security vegetables, and emergency response technology.
Well, what we did is we put some more funding there because we had to raise the gap, and I see our sheriff out there, and I know he was one that really appreciated this, is when you retire from the state, you couldn't make but a certain threshold of money with that. So you weren't able to get fully police certified to come back and like being school resource officers, number one. So this was able to raise that threshold. So we get somebody that had gone through APO certification, and have been an officer, say, for 25 or 30 years, whether that was a sheriff or a deputy, they can now come back and truly have additional expertise inside the schools. That's number one. Number two, the funding when it came down for those particular SROs, a lot of times in the past it's fallen on, could your local school districts afford those school resource officers in the schools? So what we were, and a lot of them couldn't, so what we were able to do with additional funding around that bill was now school systems have more money. They can actually pay those school resource officers to make sure all schools have one. Now still it's up at the discretion of your local school districts to make sure they do that. Also, one of the prerequisites that you qualified for some of the COVID monies, school districts could have used COVID dollars for entry proof of the doors when you got a scan to come in or not, the automatic locked doors behind when you come in, the enforcement of windows, enforcement of doors, metal detectors, all of that was qualified items under the COVID dollars. Again, it went back to the discretion of the local school district. So our take is find the extra money, give it to it, because every school district is different around their needs, where they are, and allow them to have the discretion to spend what they wanted to around additional security for the schools. But at the end of the day, the problem we're going to have is we can protect the schools there, but I still think it goes back to the being able to communicate amongst the kids, being able to try to change the environment as well too. It's not just providing, they shouldn't feel like they're going to a prison to be locked in to be educated. You know, that's where you kind of have to find that slippery slope, where you got to find where it's common ground, because you see now that so many people are suing the liability out there. How many times when we were in school, I can say this, we were in school, if there was going to be a thunderstorm that day, we went to school. Now if there's going to be a thunderstorm, what happens? Closing down school. We got to stay at home because schools don't want that liability on them. And I think that's why I'm seeing more school districts. I know ours around here have done a really good job of trying to make sure that they try to make the safest environment for our kids here in the area.
So I definitely believe the administration is trying their best to do that at the local school district level. But when you just throw money at it without accountability and without giving them the infrastructure to be able to implement that, what concrete actions are you taking to be able to safeguard our children, to be able to get guns out of the hands of people and not just be reactive with resources, but to actually make a difference to make our children safe?
I would love to have a conversation, get your recommendations of what you think we could do for that, because again, we have a superintendent, we have a school board, they're elected. We need to give them the discretions as well too of what they would like to come up with around it.
You are as well, sir.
Absolutely, and we work.
I'm asking, what are you going to do? What is your plan of action as a representative who we have all elected to keep our children safe? What are you going to do?
Well, first off, that's a very tall task as an individual. We'll continue to work with our local school boards. We'll work with our colleagues that are up here as well too. Funding is the number one thing that it starts with. You got to be able to have the funds to be able to provide the necessary needs and means that the school system needs. That's the number one priority for us, as Representative Gray said at the beginning, from passing 2 budgets. You know, that's the number one priority that we have with that. At the same time, we continue to look at what good common sense legislation, the clock switch ban that we had this year. I think that was one that goes a long way as well too with that.
My name is Manfred Malone. My question is, I have 2 questions. The first one is in reference to the, I believe I saw it correctly, the failed lottery bill. And my question is, number one, why? why is it failed? Because when you look at the amount of revenue that the state of Alabama loses annually to the neighboring states, which Alabama can keep, which all the numbers that you guys just showed about the money going to certain school districts and why the Mobile counties and the Birmingham and places like that get more than other areas. I think that the lottery would come in great in a situation like that. Just simply put, I believe, and this is Google numbers, of course, I looked at what the state of Alabama loses somewhere around $700 million of revenue every year annually to neighboring states. So my question is that what is keeping that bill from passing? And then my second question is in reference to the prison system. I believe it's Elmore County where the new prison is being built. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the most expensive prison in the country. Is it not?
It's expensive, I don't know, yeah, it's.
Okay. So, are we anticipating an increase in crime, or are we going off past situations and anticipating needing the most expensive prison in the nation? You know, or can that revenue could have been used somewhere else?
Well, I'll answer the first question. I would like to, if I could, I'd give you a high five on the lottery. You're fortunate, all four of us sitting up here voted yes when that came up 2 years ago. In fact, I worked 14 months and crafted that legislation, not only around the lottery, also around the casinos and around sports betting that would generate about $1.2 billion a year for the state of Alabama. We passed it in the House. First time in history, the state of Alabama, the comprehensive gaming legislation passed the House of Representatives. Senator Beasley was a great champion to work alongside the Senate. What was it? One vote? I think it was one vote short of it passing, because all we can do around the lottery, since it had to be a constitutional amendment to allow the citizens to vote, we had to get 63 votes in the House, which we did. The Senate failed by one. So one Senate vote. So where our stance in the House was when we went into the legislative session this 2025 year was, we're not taking up gaming again in the House. We've already proved we can pass it. The Senate needs to prove they want to play ball and give the citizens of Alabama an opportunity to vote on it. So this year a decision was made by leadership not to address gaming at all. I've already seen reports out there from leadership in the Senate with it being an upcoming election year, they really would not like address it again. So our stance in the House is when the Senate proves they're ready to play ball, we're ready to get back on the field with them, because I think it's been since 1999 that the citizens got to vote. It's time they get to choose what they want around that topic. So hopefully that happens again. So you want to answer the second part?
As far as the prisons go, just because they are building the prisons, it's still, so we really got to really focus on criminal justice reform and really how to get people back to the workforce, because about over 90% of the people that are in prison are going to get out, right? And so I think that the solution is misguided, because they're thinking it's in building prison, and that prison is only going to hold 4,000 people, and it's, I mean, it's still not going to hold enough people, right? It's still going to be overcrowded. And so if we just more took it from, you know, that 70-year-old that's in jail, right, for life, that's has a medical condition, he can come out. He or she can come out. There are things that are non-prison that we can do. Our workforce participation is barely even 50%. So that means that maybe like 1 million people in Alabama are not working. Or if you think about the work release program, where people are going home on the weekend, right, and during the week they're working 80 hours a week for $2 or something, right? Those people should be able to go out into the workforce where them getting Medicaid or getting some kind of form of health care was able to help them with their substance abuse, right? So it was tied to substance abuse, because basically they were reoffending, because basically they were getting on drugs and had mental problems. So those are two of the examples that I've seen. I don't know, you know, I don't know the studies as far as those works or not, but those are things that we can kind of look at. But I think it's more about understanding that everybody's not a criminal. Some people just need help, and basically how to get them that help and get them back into society.
And let me add one thing for Representative. Councilman Day has his question. I know Senator Beasley did this earlier. Do you run Representative Ford? Let's go down real quick and tell everybody, because you know, you ask a lot of questions and a lot of bills. We read them when they come to the floor, but can you tell everybody the committees that you're on? I think it probably would be helpful. Senator Beasley did that for all three of the rest of us to tell what committees we sit on, because that's where any bill must come before it passes, before it's even considered. Go ahead, Senator.
You finish that, I'd like to talk about gaming.
With pleasure.
I'd like to talk about gaming. Talk about the real reason it didn't pass.
Hey, I would I would love to hear that. I'm gonna let you have that. But I guess it's Representative Ford, do you want to go and tell
I'm
me?
on active in campaign finance committee. I'm also on the, well, I got it wrote down here, so I can't read my own right. And, I'm on 3 different committees, but none of them got nothing to do with prison. I'll turn that down.
All right, but you
Because, look,
set me up for that.
They could find the money.
He said he wasn't gonna say anything else, did he?
She's talking about the water a while ago, the water deal. But the class, she don't live in the black belt. They bought the water over there. And you know these water department got boo-hoos of money, boo-hoos of money. I was talking with a guy in New Florida, in my hometown, went with the water system. And I said, y'all must make a lot of money. He said, well, I'm on the low end of the, and I'm making $37. I'm making $37 an hour. He making $37 an hour, but look, I know when the city, you probably borrowed money from the water board. That ain't been many years ago. So, y'all having a water problem here, ain't you? Huh?
I have no comments on what's going on locally. If there's any here from the local city council would like to address that.
Go ahead.
Let me do mine real quick. So he's on those. So he actually has set me up for that one. So the committee, I think Jeremy and I, one. So I'm on insurance. So the PBM, Senator Beasley, Bill came through our committee. So I'm on insurance committee. I'm chair of financial services. So anything that does with banking and or credit unions throughout the state comes from my committee. And I'm also vice chair of the general fund committee, which is, we're one of only 3 states that has separate educations and general fund budgets that I sit on with that.
You prison, man.
I'm on health, education, and public safety and homeland security.
Well, I like to say good afternoon to my state delegation for Russell County. And these gentlemen here, I like to say is, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming to our local lunch. I like to say to the folks that are in this room, this is something we started approximately 6 years ago, and I had the initiative to start this project. I don't like to use the word I like to use the word we, which is plural. But I get the initiative to start this on my own. The local elected fellowship luncheon, these gentlemen you see on stage here come down to luncheon. I think it's probably the 5th or 6th years. And what it is, it improves the relationship between state, county, and city government. That's what this luncheon is all about. And I'd like to thank y'all for coming to District 3. This is the district that I represent, my 14,000 plus citizens. I want to thank y'all for coming this afternoon. But here's what I got going on. I sat here very diligently and listened to what you guys had to say, very diligent. But I want you guys to elaborate on something for me. We have a problem here in Baker City and infrastructure. Now, I think everybody aware of that lives here. And it has to do with the water system here, and to do with the sewage system. As you know, ADM came into our city, and we having a problem with ADM. We're trying to get this resolved. I'm not going to go into detail, but we're trying to get that situation resolved. And I like to say, what can the state do? How can the state aid us in this problem that we have here in Baker City? What can y'all do for us?
That's why, this is how money works, right? It comes from the federal government sometimes, and it comes in different brackets, right? It may be infrastructure, maybe water, then it comes down to state government. Then it goes to agencies like ADEPA, people like that. Those as lawmakers, we can't just give you money just because you need it, because everybody in the state needs money. It's a process that you go through, whether you file a grant or things of that nature, but everything you do has to have a monthly matching, right? It's nothing like free, right? And so if someone gives you 70% of something, you have to come with the other 30%. And we're not the federal government, so the state is not just gonna cover the 30%, right? And so that is where city, county, and state has to work together, because if you come to us and say, like, we just need $5 more billion, we might can find you $5 million, but we can't find you $50 million, right? And so we just have to work together, because there's no, besides the federal government, no one prints money, right? And so when we think about what came down from the ARPA, when we think about what came down from the COVID money, there was so much money that could have went to some of those things that didn't. is not our governance of how that money is spent. We can't tell the city how to spend money that they got from COVID that you could have used for roads and bridges. We have the gas tax that comes out each and every year, that a percentage of that goes towards roads and bridges. Now, one thing we could help with as far as the Rebuild Alabama, we could expand it to different things like water, sewage, because it's really like for roads and bridges right now. But there's no like crystal ball of money that we can just give to Russell or Phoenix City, but we willing to work with y'all. If you're coming up short $5 million or you need help, we can help you find it. But government it never worked. I've only been there 7 years, but I just haven't seen a room full of money that I can just give to my district.
Well, we understand this. I've been on the council for 13 years, as with President Black. We understand there's a match, maybe 20%. And I know it's on life. We do have some grant writing to here. We stand shovel ready. Last year, I believe we got $25 million plus in grant money because we were shovel ready. And but one of the things that those dollars that we got are spent very diligent down there in sewage plant. We spent $4.5 million down there. We still spending more money down there. Like I said, infrastructure here is so old that we have to spend. We spend money every year, so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And one of the things that I have, I'm going to speak about. You read it, basically going back to Mr. B. McDaniel. We have so many water leaks right here. I know it's local, and I get beat up every day going about water leaks here in this city. So let's go back to infrastructure. We definitely need those dollars to get to help your aid us in that area as well. Now, I'm going to change the conversation just a little bit, gentlemen. I've been beat up right here on 431, right here at this church down here. I've been beat up several times. Those folks in that church said the city would not fix that driveway. My engineers go down there and tell them it's state property. And you guys represent this district here as Russell County. So what can you guys do down there, the church right down the street there on the right hand side? Look at that driveway. It's been like that for 14 years. I have tried to help those individuals. I go through my city council, my city engineer, my city manager, but it says state property. I know that. But what can you guys do to help solve that issue? And another thing, Senator Beason and the state delegation, look, let me say this to you guys. There is something that I have personally a problem with. That's 5th Street South. The interchange coming out 431, you make that left turn coming on 5th Street South. That is the craziest thing I ever seen. I mean, you sit in the middle of the road, these cars are coming, but you pay left lane, you're sitting out there in the middle of the road. Are you aware of that? I'm sure you are. If you went down 5th Street South, we need to do something about that. That's state highway. We're aware of that as well. We need help here in Phoenix City. We got money. Yes.
Thank you, Representative Blackshear. That was a question about why did the gaming bill fail? That's a real good reason. The state of Florida, the state of Mississippi, the state of Tennessee, they have lotteries. Mississippi has all types of gaming. They don't want gaming in Alabama because we're competitors. But there's really there's enough gaming for everybody. But there's another reason. The Porsche Indians in Alabama have a monopoly in the state of Alabama. And the sponsor of the bill is a friend of mine. The Porsche felt like they didn't get enough of that bill, and they didn't want it to pass. So the sponsor of the bill did not vote for it. We had 20 votes. We needed 21. So it's something that's long overdue, because as a member of the legislature, on a constitutional amendment, you just are voting to allow the people to vote. And let the people decide. And if the people of Alabama don't want gaming, then it's fine. Now, in 1999, a lot of outside politics got into the state of Alabama, and they killed the measure. We had an opportunity, but they didn't get it done. It's a very, very sensitive issue. You got a lot of people who are not going to ever vote for it, to even allow the people to vote. But you got outside interests that don't want Alabama to ever get it. The state of Georgia is on the verge of passing to the game in Georgia. If they get it, then you'll be surrounded by states that allow gaming. You know, if you want to game, all you got to do is get on your little smartphone, game all you want to. But it's a source of revenue for the state of Alabama. It would help to, the state of Alabama made the decision to have Medicaid expansion, then your 10% match could be generated by gaming revenue. That's a possibility. You know, I don't know if it's going to come back again. You know, I represent Macon County, which has Victorland. In 2009, Bob Riley shut down Victorland. And they've been struggling ever since. They lost probably 2,500 employees. Lost over 1,500 employees, maybe closer to 2,000 employees. Which is, it is wrong. He never should have got involved in that issue. And he protected the Choctaws in Mississippi the entire time he was governor of Alabama. You know, that's the issue. That's the way it is in Alabama. So, you know, think about it when you go to the polls next time to vote. Folks in Alabama need to think about the issues. Alabama issues. And, you know, go back to Medicaid. The Medicaid match in Alabama is 30% state money, 70% federal money. The general fund and the education trust fund, we got $10 billion in education plus $166 million to educate children with special needs, $3.6 billion in the general fund. Well, folks, we get about over 15 million added to the education trust fund and the general fund. We couldn't fund anything without some federal money. We wouldn't have enough money. Folks up in Washington, they don't want us to send federal money down for the education system in Alabama. It cripples us. Because we got $12 billion in Alabama, but we gain an additional $15 billion or more to fund education in Alabama. So we need to think about that too.
I'll make one more comment. I'm glad you, on the lottery, I'm glad you opened up that cannon, because I don't want to let Alpha off the hook either for being a big influence of killing it and making sure it passed as well too.
Alpha is opposed.
And the senator they mentioned, it was the, I'll give you 60 seconds behind the scenes now. It's probably the first time I ever wanted to ask somebody to meet me out back at the State House. Was the night that we, on the gaming legislation, the Senate did pass a watered down version and send it to us after what we had. It was basically nothing. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, we had a 10. They sent it back out about a 1.5. So we chose to go to conference where there's 3 members of the House, 3 members of the Senate. We get in a room and we work it out. We came up with an agreement. 6-0, it passed out of that conference committee. Comes to the House, we concur with the conference report, send it up to the Senate. And this is where Senator Beasley talked about the one vote was the sponsor of the bill, which the PCI headquarters, Port Street headquarters, is in his district in Atmore. Voted yes on the conference report. 30 minutes later, goes to the floor in the Senate and votes no. So that's how close it was right there. We were 30 minutes from him going to a yes vote to a no vote. So until certain individuals, he's right, some people's never going to vote for it. As long as gaming comes up, Alpha Insurance will 100% always be against it. They will fight against it. And here's why the people fight against it. Let me tell you, to hold some of these organizations accountable. They want to do it the cheap way. It's easier to go to the Senate. There's only 35 people to find 14 people to get them not to vote for it, or 15 not to vote for it, than it is to run campaigns to try to get the majority of 5 million Alabamians not to vote for it. So we really want to put it out there what it's worth. It's easier for them to control it in the State House because it don't cost them anything than it would be if it went out there and the citizens had the right to vote. So before we close out, I know Representative Gray and I talked about this. I see our sheriff and our DA back there. Anything from a crime perspective locally y'all would like to add? What we're seeing, anything we can do to help? Because this is where y'all see it, right? Everything we sit up here about asking, what are we going to do to make schools safer? What are we going to do to make our streets safer? What can we do? Because y'all are seeing the back end of that. If y'all don't mind.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank y'all for coming to the county and talking to us about these issues. I will say that the money that has went into the SRO programs in Russell County has made a huge difference. I can tell you that. We have been able to put a deputy in every school in the county districts. We're able to buy metal detectors for events. We're able to do the things that you're talking about to protect our kids from guns coming in. We were not able to do that prior to, and so we are able to have those measures in place today. And so I feel really good about that. The biggest thing about that is kids have to know that we're going to be checking. We've put dogs in the school that are actually firearm dogs. They're not drug dogs. They're bomb and firearm dogs. So, we have all those things here in Russell County in every school district that we have. The city runs their own SRO program, so I can't speak to that. But I can speak to the counties and to the county school system. It's no secret about why we have in Russell County a 540-bed jail. If you took our population and you put it in the middle of the state, we would need 120 beds. But because of our proximity to Columbus, we have a much larger population in our facility. They had the idea, they being the criminal, that they can come across the river and commit crime and get away with it, and it backfires on them. And instead, they come across the river, they commit crime, and we catch them and put them in our jail faster than what Columbus would. They had a lot bigger population, they had more crime, and so we have a better opportunity of catching them. The things that y'all have done for talking about the immunity bill, I can just tell you straight up front that what had occurred over the last couple of years that brought this bill on was that officers doing their job on a daily basis within the scope of the law, doing everything right, were getting sued. And that's how this whole thing come about. Everybody in law enforcement was getting ready to go home. Y'all can have it, because I can't go to work and do my job and not break the law and still have to worry about getting sued and losing everything that my family has. So that's what brought this bill on about the immunity. And this bill doesn't protect the bad guy. I would disagree with that. What I would say is you can still get sued, and the bad guy, if he's out of the scope of the law and our policies, he still can be sued. He can be prosecuted. What this law is talking about are the good cops that do it in the line of duty and the scope and the policy. You shouldn't be able to go and sue that guy when he did nothing wrong. That's where it's stopping it from ever getting to the court system. So that's where the difference in that immunity, comes in. Because there were officers all over the country that were about to just quit, period. Because you can't do this job and have that hanging over your head. If I make an arrest and I don't do anything wrong, you can still sue me. I mean, that don't make sense to anybody. So that's why this immunity bill was such a big deal, because that was the whole thing, was that people were getting sued that didn't do anything wrong, that didn't violate the law, that didn't do anything, but they were bringing these lawsuits. So, we were happy to see that y'all were able to pass that. I think it's the right thing to do. And the bad guys, I agree with what somebody said, one bad apple, we don't want any bad apples. And certainly if that comes to play, those guys are not going to be protected. They're going to be prosecuted and they're going to be sued, because they're going to be doing things outside of our policies and procedures and outside of what the law allows them to do. So, while we've been sitting here today, we had a girl shot on 431 at Eagle Landing. It's amazing to me that the lack of life, respect for life that our kids have today. And you're right. Used to, when we would get into a fight in high school, you may get into a fight, but by the time you fought it on the playground and you went and you still played ball together in the afternoon, and there wasn't guns involved and there wasn't weapons involved, and it didn't escalate. And today, that's just kind of the world we live in. Nobody has any respect for life. This girl gets shot in the stomach. She was pregnant. I don't know if she's alive or dead yet. Me and Rick sitting here going back and forth. I had a lady call me and send me a picture while we're sitting here about who the shooter was. I don't know the answer. If I did, I wouldn't be still in Russell County. But I do know the problem is that nobody respects life. Just life. And so we've got to somehow get a hold of that. We are safer in Russell County than across the river. And I'll be the first to tell you that. They may not like for me to say that, but the fact is, it's true. I mean, we're safer here. And I attribute that to our lawmakers, our decision makers, these guys sitting up here. They give us everything they can. I've said this about my commission. Russell County is not a wealthy county. We don't have a lot of industry bringing in tax dollars, but they do the best they can to give us at the sheriff's office what they can give us to do our job. Do I think that it should be more? Sure I do, but I understand that it's just not an unlimited amount of money. And I think that the state has done a good job with what you have and what you give us and what we can do with that on our end. Because at the end of the day, we all got to care about where we live and about how we do things. And so you got to be good stewards. And I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any for me, but certainly give Rick an opportunity.
Well, I think we need to thank you for doing the job you've been doing.
So, like the sheriff said, we just had another shooting. I've got about 1,600 felony cases waiting to go to trial. This week at my grand jury's meeting, who I see at least one former grand jury member, we're going to add another 220 felonies this week through this grand jury process. I got 55 murders pending. I've got over 105 child abuse cases, felonies, either sexual or physical. I've got nearly 100 robberies, 100 and some attempted murders this week. This will be our third shooting this week that I know of. We had 4 people shot this week. We've only had 2 murders this year. Only 2, which is pretty good for us. Real good, isn't it? Back in May, at a little park called Meadow Lane Park, we had 150 rounds shot off. 5 people were hit. Nobody died. 3 days before that, 50 rounds shot off on 20th Street in Phoenix City. 2 people hit. Nobody died. 3 days after that, 50 rounds shot off. 1 person hit. Nobody died. It's good we've only had 2 murders because we're bad shots. It's not for lack of trying. And so we can count our blessings that we've only had 2 murders this year. But it ain't for lack of trying. We've had a lot of people hit. In fact, the ones that shot the shots the other day, I don't know how many shots were fired, but there's probably now a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, a 16 and a 17-year-old now in Ross County Jail for attempted murder. A 15-year-old is now in detention for attempted murder. That's going to add to about 20 kids that are 20 and under in the Russell County Jail for some violent offense. Attempted murder or murder. So, I hear everybody's got problems. We all are talking about we need money here, we need money here, there's no doubt. But money doesn't fix everything. And I think, like Chris said, a lot is we got to figure out in our souls why we don't respect life. Where have we gotten in our community? We don't respect life anymore. And I hear about prisons, and I don't like filling up prisons, so with the help of Judge Bellamy, we have what's called drug veterans, all the specialty courts which deal with drugs, veterans, those who have drug addictions, or veterans, or mental health issues. We have courts that if that's their driving issue, they can get help. But the minute they kill somebody, the minute they shoot somebody, they don't qualify for those courts anymore. And those people I'm going to put in prison. So bill me as many as you can, because I'm going to put those guys in prison. Somebody else can worry about getting them out, because that's not who I'm worried about. I'm worried about the family who just lost a little child. I have to talk to a family whose daddy ain't coming home, whose daddy died at the foot of the Christmas tree because somebody shot him and he ran back in the house and died at the bottom of the Christmas tree. That's what I have to worry about. So, we try what we can. I want everybody in these white shirts to stand up for me right here. You know who you are. Helping Families here. Florence started it. Mary's taken over. And Helping Families is through the DA's office. These guys work with our schools to try to help kids stay in school, figure out what's going on in schools, figure out if they've got problems with at home life, what's driving their problems at home, why are they not going to school, why are they making bad grades. Mary Mahone runs my Helping Families program, and these guys are interning with us this summer. They're going off to college. These are the positive things I get to see every day, because I don't see many. So these guys, they're not the problems in our community. These guys are the future to fix the problems that y'all are here whining about. Okay? These young people who go out and find a way to fix what we haven't been able to fix in our lifetime. And it's going to be up to y'all to figure out how we can turn it around and care about life, where we don't go to school and worry about getting killed. We don't go to the grocery store where our grandmamas can't go out on the street at night or sit on the front porch because they're going to get shot. That's the world I want to have. And so these young people are who I put my trust in, the positive people, to help fix these problems. Okay? So anyway, I appreciate what y'all do. My office, the DA's office, is only funded about 40% by the state of Alabama. And I'm a state office. The rest comes through other sources. And yeah, we need money, but we do the best we can. Phoenix City was down 40 police officers. I don't know if you're still down some. These investigators are out investigating this crime tonight. They're one of only 2 investigative teams that Phoenix City has, with about 5 people on each shift. They used to have 3 teams with about 7 on each shift, but they can't power enough. There's not enough officers that want to serve in that role to help them. So they're having to work overtime tonight to figure out who shot this girl in the stomach. I hope she's pregnant, I hope she's alive, and I hope that she was not pregnant or the baby's okay. But I know right now I got to deal with another crime tomorrow, and it ain't stopping. There's no end in sight. So, I hear everybody's problems. We've got to work together as a community, whether you're Republican or Democrat or black or white. We're a family. This is our community, and whatever it takes, we got to figure a way to fix this. We got too many kids dying, too many kids scared to go to school. too many kids that can't get health care. We gotta figure out a way. But the good thing is, we can make it happen, because these guys have a good idea and a plan, and they're gonna do well. So thanks, guys, for coming out and supporting our legislators tonight. Thank y'all for coming out, and I'll hang around. Won't take any more of y'all's time, but if y'all have any questions that we can help y'all with, let us know.
Okay, guys, we have 3 more questions on deck, and then we'll close out. And Chance, I understand you want to be last?
It doesn't matter, I can
Does
be
not
last,
matter?
that'd be good. Got
Okay.
more questions? I'll just, let me just say what I'm gonna say real quick, and then I'll sit down. I'm not gonna, Chris knew that was a bad call on the sheriff, man. He knew that was gonna be an hour there, so. You know, really good comments. I'm Chance, I'm County Commission Chairman now for Russell County, and first off, I wanna say again, thank y'all for coming tonight. And I wanna say something positive about this group. You know, I've been fortunate enough to know every one of them sitting at that table from the minute they started running for their office. And some of them, Senator Beasley, almost my entire life. So I want to say that they have worked with us as a county commission, and what they have done for us, they have worked together as a team and have passed legislation that we put as priority to try to help our roads, try to help our county, and some of the services we were doing. And for that, I appreciate it. I know that tomorrow, the next day, I can call or text any one of those 4, and they're going to answer. And we really appreciate that as a commission. So thank y'all so much for that and what y'all do for our county. The only other thing I'll say, just so Councilman Day, to try to help him, good friend over there, 431 and 165, the state is working on that. They have a plan, and they're now doing the investigative side of it, utilities and all. They're fixing to fix that problem, and that is going to be a great thing for this county. So thank y'all for the work your state engineers doing on that as well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think we have a question on this side.
Yes, ma'am.
One over here. Okay.
Hi, my name is Janai Ingham, and I'm an intern with them. And I just had a question about the immunity law that was recently passed. I was wondering, will there be increased training to go along with the law that was passed to prevent the bad apples, like he stated, from becoming policemen in our communities?
I don't know specifically in the bill will it be, but I know that there will be an annual report that will give those numbers. Because I remember it was supposed to be 2 years, and there was a limit to actually bring that report in 2026. So if it's not working, we'll know, and you can hold us accountable for those who did vote for it or not, right? So that is something that, from a measure of if it's working or not, we will see. We'll see the data.
And our last question is over here.
I'm going to tell my age a little bit on this, but about 30 years ago, I worked a full-time job making $4.25 an hour, and I could afford a 2-bedroom apartment as a single mom for me and my daughter. 30 years later, the minimum wage is only $7.25. You've got parents working 2 and 3 jobs trying to make ends meet. What are you guys doing about the minimum wage and the cost of the housing crisis?
The minimum wage would probably be like $30 by now with inflation. But I just don't, I've seen examples where you take a city like Birmingham and they try to raise the minimum wage, and you know, us as the legislature, we come and tell them they can't do it. So I just don't know the answer to that, because we do have the ability to do it, we haven't done it, but I think that most states look at the federal government and they hadn't changed in 20, 30 years as well. So I just think that's one of those things that we do have to look at, because I think if you kind of look at it, what is affordable now? Everything is high, everything is inflated. And as far as the housing, I know we do have some kind of tax credit as far as workforce housing, where we're incentivizing businesses and contractors to come in to build homes around workforce. But we do need to look at how to, because what livable, right? Because I don't know, we could say we could subsidize and make rent $800, some people can't afford it, right? And so how do we come to some kind of standard, right? Doing some of the things that Birmingham is doing, subsidizing home and trying to find money for homelessness and things of that nature. But all these things take money, right? And it takes money on every level. No state, no state is just gonna fund this, right? So how do we come up with a local plan? You know, me and Chris, we're working on the mental health crisis, right? And so we're working on that as well. So how do we come together to work on these things? And it's gonna take all of us. It can't just be the state, it has to be the city, the county, even the federal level coming together and saying, what can we all do to make this better?
I would like to add one thing about the minimum wage too. I think it's a slippery slope. Because as a business owner, and the people in this room that are business owners, you've only got a set amount of dollars for salaries. So if you come in and mandate that you go from $8 an hour, now you got to pay $20 an hour, the first thing that business owners are going to do is A, increase the cost of the product, or B, they're going to reduce their staff. Now our unemployment numbers go up. So there's got to be a balance between the two of them. If you come in and mandate you will pay this, it's going to drive unemployment up. And I can tell you, inflation on apartment things, it's the apartment I lived in here in Phoenix City in I'm going to show my age now, 1996, it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $500 a month. That same apartment, number 310, is still in existence today at the same location, where the only renovations that's been done is stove being replaced, maybe some new carpet, some new sheetrock up on the walls with some paint. It's $1,200–1,300 now for that same apartment. And that goes back to where those individuals base their price for apartments on what they're seeing in the area and what they could charge. Whoever thought there'd be apartments right now in Phoenix City, Alabama, that costing you $2,300 a month to live in them. That's unfortunately that's where it's going now in that area too. So it's from a business owner, you know, we want affordable housing, but if you're a business owner, you want less regulations and us to stay out of it and let's make business and business money on their side. So it's kind of in between that's where it gets really murky.
Okay, I believe our evening has been well spent, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank these gentlemen for coming back to our community and sharing information with you on how the legislative session went. I know that there are a lot of issues in the room, and we don't always have all the answers. And let us keep one thing in mind, is that these individuals represent one vote, and they don't always get their way with that one vote. But it's great to be able to hear from their constituents, to share information about what the concerns are. Before we close out tonight, I want to recognize some other individuals who are in the room. We do have representatives from our county commission who are here. If you all would stand to be recognized, county commission members. Mr. Chance is already. Thank you all for being here and for supporting this program. We also have members of our city council who are here. If our city council members can please stand. There are other elected officials. We have some school board members and individuals who represent our various school boards. If you would stand, please. We are represented by our Chamber of Commerce. So I just want you all to know that we have come full circle with this. So our Executive Director of the Chamber, Melissa Ginn, thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, you all know that we provide service to this community. And I believe that we are the jewel in this community. We have some representatives from our foundation board. They support us in so many different ways. So members of our foundation board, would you please stand? Okay, and we also have other elected officials. If I haven't called you, stand at this time. I see you. All right. Okay, thanks guys. This has been a great evening, and Chattahoochee Valley Community College has been honored to serve as the host for this event. And I will ask, gentlemen, are there any parting words? Any closing remarks? Thank you all so much, and have a blessed evening.